See a lot of
Hi there.
familiar faces. That's so nice. And some of you I haven't seen for a long time. Jerry, you look different. I mean, it's been like 5 years or something, so that's no surprise. I probably look different too.
You look actually very, very much the same as I remember you, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to wait a couple of minutes and see. I think we're expecting probably 10 or 12 people. So we will see if people are coming on in.
Are you in your home office, Rachel?
I am. I am in my home office. And the house actually is full of people today, which is nice. So hopefully they won't be too noisy, but maybe they'll be a little noisy, and then it will just be like, yes, this is life in people's houses.
I just have cats here right now.
Yeah, they're probably not that noisy.
They could be, but hopefully not.
So let's see. Oh, it looks like there's more people here than I can see. Oh, I should go this way. And now I can see more of you. Hi, Rima. You guys can, yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
People are very politely muting themselves, but they can also unmute themselves and say hello if they want to. Hi.
Hi, Rachel. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Anne. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing fairly well. I can't complain about this beautiful fall weather, so
Yeah.
that's made me happy.
Yeah, I don't see any of you outside, but you know.
No, alas, no.
I was going to be outside, but my neighbor had his lawn service come and it's incredibly noisy. So I was like, nope, not happening.
Yeah, not today. Yeah, probably if I went outside, my neighbor's lawn service would come too.
So annoying.
I have a good view. Nice trees, and I see the Center City skyline from my window of my office,
What part
which
of
is very
Philly
nice.
do you live
In West Philadelphia.
Oh,
So so I get green, and then I look out and I have skyscrapers.
wonderful. Okay, well, my clock says it's like 4:03, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm trying to see, actually, I should do a different view so I can see you guys better. Oh yeah, that's better. I'm Rachel Pastan, and I am really excited to be doing this Wednesdays on the Stoop with Blue Stoop. This is actually the first time I've been doing non-teaching things with my life the last few years. So this is the first time that I have taught on Zoom. So it seems like finally I'm catching up with the rest of the world. So I'm glad to be here with you guys. So I'll tell you a little bit about how this is going to work, and then we'll get started. So, well, first I'll introduce myself. So some of you I know, and it's lovely to see familiar faces. It's wonderful to see new people too. So I'm Rachel Pastan. I'm mostly a novelist, although I write stories and essays as well. And I live in Swarthmore, just outside of Philadelphia. I have taught writing at the Bennington Writing Seminars MFA program, at Swarthmore College, a bunch of other places. And the session that we're doing today, Getting Emotion on the Page, is something I've taught as part of classes. I don't think I've ever done it as a standalone before, but it's something I really love teaching. It's something I think is something that is the really useful and sort of something students often don't think about, but that once you start thinking about it can really make a big difference in your writing. And so it's fun to share with people. Just a few Zoom housekeeping things. As you know, we're being recorded, so hopefully that's okay with everyone. If it's not, then it's not the workshop for you, but I don't think they're doing anything scary with it. So writing classes, as most of you know, are pretty intimate in nature. So if you can keep your camera on, I would appreciate it. I know your classmates would appreciate it too. If you need to go, turn it off to go do something for a couple of minutes, we certainly understand that. I hope we'll be a bit informal. So if you want to speak, you can just unmute yourself and talk, or if I don't see you and you want to get my attention, you can use the hand wavy feature or whatever works. But we're a small enough group, we can be pretty informal, I think. I'm gonna go around and just ask you to introduce yourselves briefly, just so we hear everybody's voice in the room before we start. Maybe you can just say I guess I'll call on you because of course you can't see my screen, but so I'll call on you and then just ask you to unmute yourself and say your name, where you're calling in from, what genre you write in, mostly stories, novels, sci-fi, whatever it is, and then just briefly why you decided to take the session. So Anne, let's start with you. I can't hear you.
And you need to unmute.
Yeah, got it. I'm Anne. I live in West Philadelphia, and I write in a variety of genres and media of expression. I have lately been writing poetry. I write short fiction, children's fiction, and also nonfiction that's particularly about the city and the built environment.
Okay. Jacqueline?
I'm Jackie, and I am in Moreau, New York, and I'm really glad to be here. And I write fiction, I write short stories, and I've written 3 novels. And I was very curious about this class. I don't know how it popped up on my Facebook page, but Rachel, you had been a reader of mine for my thesis. Susie Merrill had recommended.
That's
So
right.
I wanted to see her face, and I wanted to like take the class and see what it was all about.
Great. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Amy?
I'm here in the Philly burbs. I also, like Anne, write everything. Nonfiction for children, fiction for children, nonfiction and fiction for adults, short stories, and essay, and quite a bit of poetry. And I'm very interested in the topic.
Okay, great. Thank you. Madison?
Hi, I'm Madison. I'm an English major at Drexel University. I'm a 4th year and I'm doing a concentration in writing. I'd love to be an author one day, but I especially love fantasy. So currently working on my own little fantasy book, but I also enjoy writing poetry. I'm taking a poetry class right now. And I'm also doing an internship in publishing, and I have to put out articles for them. And funny enough, when I was doing research on Philadelphia, this group came up and I was like, oh my God, this class looks like something I actually want to do. So that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome. Jerry?
Hi, I'm Jerry Modell. I live in New Jersey, North Plainfield, New Jersey. I write primarily short fiction, a little bit of essay. And the topic, I know Rachel from Bennington and had a wonderful experience with Rachel as a teacher, missed those days. And putting emotion on the page is something I always struggle with in my writing. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you. Rima?
Hi, everyone. I'm Rima Evan. I live in Swarthmore, not too far from Rachel and Amy. And I learned about this workshop from Amy, who is a good friend of mine, and we're in a writing group together. I write short fiction, and I'm also working on a children's picture book type manuscript. And yeah, I was very drawn to the topic, and I'm looking forward to whatever comes. So thank you.
Thank you. Korean? Corinne.
Corinne. Hi, I am in Philadelphia. I do live in the suburbs in New Jersey, but my office is in Philadelphia. I mostly write short stories right now. My practice kind of started with poetry, but I'm branching further into short stories. And I also write essays. So I think that's why this class is so interesting to me, because I want to start to bridge some of my poetry work with some of the more fiction style writing. And yeah, and I actually, I did my undergrad at Bennington, so I'm really happy to see 2 other Bennington connections.
That's great, thank you. Navneet.
Hi, I'm a former Philadelphian, currently in Northern California, and that's why you saw me eating lunch just now. I'm very happy to join, though I'm at work and I might go in and out for that reason. And I write a nonfiction and poetry.
Thank you. Darcy.
Hi, I'm also at work, so you'll see me going in and out. I live in Burlington, New Jersey, and I actually came across this by accident today and very happy that I did. I was actually Googling cultural publications because I wanted to pitch a story, and I came across this, so here I am. I'm a writer by profession, but marketing, and it's very dry. It's health and technology, so I do writing on the side for my own creative outlet. Poetry only since the pandemic, and memoir, short stories, and essays.
Great, thank you. Karen.
Sorry, I'm a little bit late joining. Are people introducing themselves?
Yeah, so just your name and where you're calling from probably is good for
Okay,
now.
so I'm Karen and I'm calling from Toronto.
Okay, oh great, thank you. And Val was the last person.
Hi everyone, my name is Val. I live in West Philly. I'm from Philly, but I live in West Philly right now, and I took a class with Blue Stoop in 2019, and I always wanted to come to one of these, so I figured I'd try today. So that's why I'm here.
Fantastic, great, thank you, welcome. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit, and then I'm going to show you some examples of paragraphs that I think do a good job of getting emotion on the page, and we're going to analyze them. And then we'll do an exercise. And then if we have time, hopefully a few people will be willing to share the exercise that they've written, though you don't have to if you don't want to. So So I'm going to share my screen with you guys in a moment, but I will start by saying that there's many ways to get emotion on the page, and obviously we don't have time today to look at a lot of things, so we're going to focus on descriptive writing. And I often think about how when I was a kid, I would just like skip over the descriptions when I was reading something, like, let's get to the action. And I remember saying that to my mom, and she was like, I always read the descriptions. They're so interesting and you learn so much from them. And I was like, really? And now I think about how much work our descriptions do as writers. And I guess I'll ask you guys, what are some reasons why you think it's important to have, or could be important to have, descriptions of the physical world in writing and in prose, in stories or essays? What kind of work does description do? Yeah, Karen?
Well, the way I'm thinking of it is it sets a scene, it sets a physical setting, but I think it can also really set the tone and the mood of whatever the narrative or whatever is going on in the piece as well. So I think those kinds of descriptions can operate on a lot of different levels.
Yeah, so a lot of different levels, setting a mood. And what I like the idea, especially of, as Karen says, a lot of different levels, is that all the writing we do, you know, every sentence, every bit of dialogue should be working on a lot of different levels. So doing literal work to show us where we are, and then doing a deeper work of showing a mood and maybe some other things. What else? Yeah, Rema.
I think sometimes a physical description functions as a kind of a beat within dialogue when you want to show a person not responding. So the silence of this person, you know, twisting the napkin in her lap, or feeling a twisting in her stomach, or doing something that is physical. Even just looking out the window when someone's talking to her, it communicates something, and so it's useful as subtext.
Yeah, that's right. So in terms of pacing of a scene, how much of it you use can slow down the action or speed up the action. And I love that idea that in dialogue, when somebody's not speaking, that's often such a powerful thing. And so what do you put there? What kind of description might you put there? What kind of work might it do? Yeah. Who else? Yeah, Jackie.
Well, the language that you use in the description can also like offer the reader a perspective on, you know, the character's state
Yeah.
of emotion or thought.
Yeah, can you say more about that, like how that might work?
Well, I mean, you know, how your character sees the world, you know, and sees his own setting or his or her own setting is going to be, you know, indicative. The language that you use to describe that is going to be indicative of the characters themselves.
Yeah, that's right. And that's very much the sort of impetus, the idea behind the rest of the session that we're going to do. I remember years ago, I took a workshop with the writer John Gardner, and he has this sort of famous exercise that doubtless he didn't make up, but who knows, maybe he did make up, where you have a character describe a barn from, you know, with sort of in 3 different moods, because everything that anybody describes, anything you see through the character's eyes is always going to be telling you about that character. No 2 characters are going to look at the same barn or fork or sunset or whatever and see it the same way. And indeed, so using description helps with character as well as everything else. It's bound to be characterizing, and to go to whatever sort of mood the character is in on that moment too. From day to day, that will change. From hour to hour, that might change. So I am going to share my screen, hopefully, and we'll look at a few examples of writers doing this. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so this is an excerpt from a wonderful short novel by Gwendolyn Brooks called Maud Martha. If I could see all of you while I'm sharing the screen, I would ask how many people have read this book, but I can't. So I'll read the paragraph out loud and you can read it along with me, and then we'll talk about what's going on here. So this is a paragraph. So Maud Martha is a teenage Black girl from a poor family in Chicago. And in this scene, she's anticipating a white boy from her class is coming over to take her out for a date. And this is Maud Martha waiting for that boy to ring the doorbell. Maud Martha looked the living room over, nicked old upright piano, sag seat leather armchair, 3 or 4 straight chairs that had long ago given up the ghost of whatever shallow dignity they may have had in the beginning, and looked completely disgusted with themselves and with the Brown family. Mantle with cross decorations that usually seemed rather elegant, but which since morning had become unspeakably vulgar, impossible. There was a small hole in the sad-colored rug near the sofa. Not an outrageous hole, but she shuddered. She dashed to the sofa, maneuvered it till the hole could not be seen. Okay, I realize the trouble I'm having is that I can't see you all at once. So it's going to be a little hard for me to see who has their hand up. So you can try putting your hand up, but you can also just jump in and tell me what you see going on in the description here and what kind of work it's doing. And I can try to look at both screens.
Well, I'll jump in. I see, I mean, what's interesting to me about this is that, and maybe if we didn't know the context that somebody was coming, I wonder if I would have picked that up, but it's clear that she's seeing this room with the eyes of someone else who's about to see the room. And that's what's really interesting to me. I love the part where it says, that mantle with cross decorations that usually seemed rather elegant, but which since morning had become unspeakably vulgar and impossible. So, and there's also the sense in here of this is when it talks about look completely disgusted with themselves, the chairs, and with the Brown family, that there's a self-loathing, I feel like, is in there, that it's sort of this, she's attached to these things, but also is seeing them with a kind of disgust, which also becomes some self-disgust.
Yeah, so she's both attached to the things and she's seeing them with disgust, and that disgust sort of leaks out and becomes a self-disgust. Yeah, good. Who else?
I find it really interesting that she personifies the chair, though. She's almost like doesn't want to quite attach the disgust to herself. So she externalizes it a bit and puts it onto the chairs.
Yeah, that's right. So to look at the outer world and to sort of see it there rather than to quite admit to seeing it in yourself, perhaps, is an interesting sense of her sort of struggling with these feelings and maybe trying not to completely own them. Yeah, good. What else?
I think it's really powerful that the description ends with the whole, because I mean, it's smaller by far than the piano, the sofa, the chairs. So on one level, it's going to be the least visible thing, you would think, but it also is a sort of symbolic hole in her heart, or there's something so painful. It's almost like a bullet hole, or this terrible lack she feels. So it's something terribly poignant about it. That the hole is so small, but it seems to be the thing that really does her in. So, I mean, it's just really a powerful description.
Yeah, and almost as though it's like she's leaking out of herself through that hole or something like that, yeah, lovely. What else?
What's also interesting is the very last sentence, maneuvered it to the hole could not be seen, which sets up the rest of the story, where you might get a sense of, and unfortunately, like I haven't read it, but you might get the sense of that she's also going to maneuver herself in a way that is well received.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. And I like that you're pointing also not just to the description that we have here, but also to the action that we have here. So what are the actions that this young woman is going to take? She's dashing to the sofa. She's very quickly trying to do something, and she's maneuvering it as she's perhaps would like to be maneuvering the whole situation in some way, so that the verbs here are doing work as well as the objects and the adjectives. Good. What else?
I love the use of a sad colored rug. So she's describing it with emotion, not with color.
Yeah, that's right. She can't, it's like, it doesn't even have a color. It is a color, but the color is just sad, as though this sort of another example of the way the physical world and the emotional world, the boundary between them, there is no longer a boundary between them. They're bleeding into each other, so that sad is now a color as well as being an emotion. Good.
And also, I think the way the chairs are become personified in that they're disgusted with themselves and with the Brown family. So it's almost like not only is she disgusted, I mean, I know not only does that reflect her own disgust with these objects, but there's a sense that she has that the objects are now disgusted with her. or maybe not with her, but her family, these extensions of herself. It feels like a prelude to something really, I haven't read this either, although now I want to, but it feels like a prelude to something like really extreme or dramatic, like some enormous shift in her.
Yeah. And one thing I really like here too, so we haven't even pointed to the very sort of that very careful observation of those objects at the beginning, the nicked old upright piano. It gets a whole sentence, right? There's not even any verb in there, right? It's like it takes up the whole sentence. Sag seat, leather armchair. So I believe that the piano is nicked and old, and I believe that the leather armchair has a sagging seat. But I really love how even the mantle decorations, which usually seem elegant, since the morning have become unspeakably vulgar, impossible. So the author is going out of her way to say, really the room, it's not just that the room is so bad, it's the perception of the young woman that makes it so bad. So, okay, good. So let's look at another one. This is a very short excerpt from Patricia Highsmith's novel, The Price of Salt. And this is the novel that was made into the movie Carol, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. A sort of early lesbian novel from the middle or the first half of the 20th century. And this is a character named Therese waking up in her lover Carol's house. Therese got up and went to the window, raised it higher and leaned on the sill, tensing herself against the cold. There were no mornings anywhere like the mornings from this window. The round bed of grass beyond the driveway had darts of sunlight in it, like scattered gold needles. There were sparks of sun in the moist hedge leaves, and the sky was a fresh, solid blue. The ground looked young, the ground looked breathing and young, even though the winter had browned the grass. Okay, so what do you notice about this one?
I like that it goes from, it moves from the interior to the exterior, that we're in, that first we're inside and there she is in the window, and you really do feel the window as this liminal space that she's moving from one thing to another. And also that the morning this is a morning unlike, it's hard to say whether it's unlike other mornings or it's just this window that frames the morning and frames it differently than any other window. But there's something to me about that contact between the woman inside and the world outside that feels to speak to a place that she's moving but hasn't moved to yet, and she's kind of taking in the color and light of the world outside.
Yeah, that's lovely. And it also makes me wonder if, since, she's presumably, I can't remember specifically, but I think she's had this wonderful night with her lover in this room. There are no mornings anywhere like the mornings from this window, that whatever happened in this room is going to be leaking out this window and be affecting the landscape outside. What else? Yeah, Rema.
It feels like she's in the midst of transformation, and she just sees the world with new eyes, and especially the light everywhere. It's like she herself is illuminated. She sees the illumination outside. It's literally morning time, and she's reflecting on the sunlight, but she is connected to the morning through the light. And that's what I mean by the sense of illumination and transformation. And even the fact that the grass is actually brown, but it still looks young, I think is just the way everything is infused with a kind of new possibility. And yeah.
Yeah, so that thing with the grass is sort of like the thing with the mantelpiece in the Gwendolyn Brooks. It's like the author is telling us that actually it's not that great, but the prose is telling us that it looks incredible. So Rima, you were talking about the sun. Do you want to just point specifically to the phrases and words you were looking at?
Yeah, there are a lot of them. Darts of sunlight, scattered gold needles, sparks of sun. And although the sky is referred to as blue, it's all, you know, it's you get the sense that it's a very bright blue, you know. So there's light everywhere. Even the last line, although it doesn't literally have a reference like scattered gold needles, the fact that the ground looks breathing and young, even though the grass is brown, it just seems like everything is bright.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, Amy.
Yeah, again, I'm going to pick up on the personification of everything. As Raymond just mentioned, the ground is breathing and young. And you get the sense of Therese waking up and she's breathing and maybe feels young in this moment of new love.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's like the emotions in the character are too big to be contained by that character and are spilling out into the landscape is often how I like to think about it. The emotions cannot be contained by the human body and are spilling out into the world around it. And I think that's a really great thing to do in fiction, to do in prose. Anything else anyone wants to point to here?
Yeah, I would just say in contrast, the language here, or the sentence flow and structure between this excerpt and the previous one. The previous one had that staccato feeling of like things almost kind of shrinking into themselves, this contraction, and here there's this expansiveness. And you could almost feel like this, you know, through these like longer flowing sentences, that, you know, there's almost like this energy that's flowing from Therese, you know, that's like traveling from her out into the window, into everything that she looks at.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make, is to think about how the actual prose and the structure of the prose is working. So in the Gwendolyn Brooks excerpt, there were these much shorter staccato, I think was the word you used, Jerry, sentences, and I think that sort of gives off a little anxiety, sort of little waves of anxiety, like your mind is sort of scattered and clipped. And here there is, the sentences are longer, they're full of, you know, they're compound, complex sentences that sort of flow on, and that adds to the sense of openness and energy that's going on here. Yeah, that's a great observation. Anything else?
I just had, I stepped away for a minute, so I don't know if anyone else mentioned this, but she's looking down on it from above. Like, it's like her perspective is, you know, she's like kind of surveying it, and the setting. So I think that speaks to her, you know, her the way she's feeling at the moment. She's on top of the world, you know.
On top of the world. She's surveying the whole world as her domain, and she's doing it. Yeah. One thing I'm really interested in here too, that I was thinking about this morning, was this sort of sharpness is in here too. Darts of sunlight, gold needles, sparks of sun. I'm not sure what that sharpness is about. If it's about like a puncturing of the old world, or the pretense that she was living with before this relationship, if it's just about that sharp feeling that you sometimes get in your mind when like you have this wonderful clarity, if it's a sign of danger that lies ahead, I don't know, but I was struck by the fact that that's definitely an element of this. It's light and beautiful, but it's also sharp.
Yeah, I wondered about that too.
Okay, I have one more I want us to look at before we do a little writing. So let us move on to this last excerpt, which is from Edward P. Jones' story, The First Day, which is about a girl going to school for the first day of school, a young girl going to school with her mother for the first day of school. On an otherwise unremarkable Sunday morning, long before I learned to be ashamed of my mother, she takes my hand and we set off down New Jersey Avenue to begin my very first day of school. I am wearing a checkered like blue and green cotton dress, and scattered about these colors are bits of yellow and brown. My mother has spent nearly an hour on my hair that morning, plaiting and replaiting so that now my scalp tingles. Whenever I turn my head quickly, my nose fills with the faint smell of Dixie Peach hair grease. Like everything else I have on, my pale green slip and underwear are new, the underwear having come 3 to a plastic package with a little girl on the front who appears to be dancing. Behind my ears, my mother has dabbed the stingiest bit of her gardenia perfume, the last present my father gave her before he disappeared into memory. My shoes are black patent leather miracles, and when one is nicked at the toe later that morning in class, my heart will break. Okay, what's going on here? What do you notice? Yeah, who is that? I don't know who you are, so go ahead, whoever you are.
Me, Karen?
Me, Karen.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many things that are so evocative in this piece. But I'm just so caught by that first line, long before I learned to be ashamed of my mother, which just for me, it sets the whole mood because we realize the narrator is writing it at a distance now. And also that's just very poignant to me that, it's that innocent time and all the descriptions of all the things, even the underwear, the little bit of perfume, the shoes, everything is so precious in the literal sense of the word. All these little objects, so much care was taken and so much love was invested in it. And it meant so much at that time.
Yeah, so the care and the love in the incredibly, in those very poignant details of the underwear, the dress, the perfume, and yet that's framed with the fact that we know that one day this girl will learn to be ashamed of her mother. So we have the preciousness, and it's all the more poignant because we know the Garden of Eden will, end or whatever. Yeah, good. What else?
I'll just jump in. I think it's really poignant is the word. This is the only story of the ones you've shown us that I've read, and I remember how much I love this story. But this paragraph, it's framed by this terribly sad emotion, because the first sentence refers to long before I learned to be ashamed of my mother, and then the last sentence is my heart will break. So it's as if the whole structure of the paragraph, there's something kind of remarkably powerful about the paragraph as a unit, working to both show the beauty of what the mother did and to remind the reader that it's very evanescent, that patent leather shoes, as miraculous as they are, will get nicked and they will lead to heartbreak, and that later in life, her feelings for her mother also broke. Anyway, it's just the structure of the paragraph is truly amazing.
Yeah, and I think another part of that too, Rama, that observation is the incredible detail of the things, the pale green slip, the exact colors on the cotton dress, sort of juxtaposed with those bigger sense of that sense of, as you said, that it's evanescent, it's going to go, we know it's going to go, and yet it seems so strong and powerful in those details, like the details pin it down so much, like how could it ever disappear? And yet, it disappears, and you feel the tension of that is very much the mood here.
There's also, it's so interesting, the whole structure of how it works in time is so interesting, because you do start off with this, projection into the future that shadows everything. And then we have this very specific image of the present I am wearing. And from a very kind of childlike point of view, with, checkered light, she doesn't really have the words to describe something that actually seems like it might be plaid, but she doesn't have that word. So she's like trying to get at the description. And then we go back in time, and it's almost like a gradual peeling back of the layers of everything that happened that morning, down to opening the package of underwear that, you have everything kind of taken out and revealed in this reverse. And then it ends with the idea of the perfume and the disappearing father. So we go into the past, and then we go back to the present. My shoes are black, patent leather miracles, and then end up jumping back to the future. So it's I mean, I don't know if that has to do with what we're talking about here about description, but I just think how Jones works with time in this description is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I guess what I would say about that is that, I mean, I think the way that it connects back to what we're talking about is, again, the emotion that's conveyed by this switching around in time. And maybe we should just, I mean, this is a really complicated paragraph that we could talk about for a long time. And I love that it uses smell, which is an emotion, which is a sense that I think a lot of times we forget to use when we're writing, but it's such an evocative sense that we should always be reminding ourselves to use it. But so just briefly, what's the emotion that you guys feel here? What are emotions that seem to emanate from this paragraph? Yeah, Amy.
Well, one emotion is actually the mother's emotion. I get a sense and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the mother's anxiety. I mean, she is plaiting and replaiting the hair to try to make her daughter perfect before sending her out into the world.
Yep. So that anxiety, absolutely. Yeah. So it's not just doing the work of the child. We're also getting the mother too, even though that doesn't really seem to be the focus, because she's so good at doing a million things at once. Yeah. What else? What other emotions do you guys? Yeah.
We also get a tension between her and everyone else. And I'm really stuck on this idea or this image of the little girl on the front who appears to be dancing on the underwear package. And just that joy of this girl, but also the tension, the sadness of the young girl who has everything new on, who has been made beautiful by her mother to then fit in with others. So you get that, like, you get like a sense of like there's something deeper, like a shame or something that is now going to be seen out later.
Yeah, those little girls are doing a lot of work. Life is not quite like those little girls. All right, one more emotion that we're feeling here. Yeah, who is that?
She talks about, how her heart will break. So she really loved those shoes. So that's another emotion. And back to the comment about time, this is almost like a somewhat perfect moment in an otherwise imperfect life, because she's talking about she's going to be ashamed of her mother. Her father disappears. Her shoes will, get nicked. So
yeah. Okay, good. Good. Thank you. So what I would like us to do now is to try a little of this ourselves. And so I'm going to put the exercise in the chat if I can do that. And then let's see if it works. I think so. Let's see. Did that go through? Yeah. Can you, so what I'm going to ask you to do is to, I can't tell. Are you guys seeing my message or no?
No. Some people have trouble doing messages when they're sharing. I'm wondering if you stop sharing.
Okay, stop sharing, which I want to do anyway, actually. Thank you. Let's try it now. No. Okay, well, I'm just going to tell you what it is, and then I will work on getting it in the chat. It's not that complicated. So I want you to, so either look around your room and find something that you want to describe, or you can imagine a scene, a tree, a lake, or something if you'd rather use something from your imagination. But I think it's really cool if you can work with something in the room. It could be small, it could be a coffee cup, it could be a candlestick, it could be a pencil. And you're going to choose from one of three conditions to sort of put yourself in as you describe this object. And the three conditions are either 1, someone you love has recently died. 2, you've just won the lottery. And 3 is tomorrow you're leaving a home that you've hated living in. So again, the three conditions are someone you love has just died, you've just won the lottery, or tomorrow you're leaving a home that you've hated. So I want you to describe this thing from the point of view of one of those conditions. And I'm going to tell you just very briefly what I don't want. I don't want direct telling of the emotion. I don't want you to say she felt sad. I don't want adverbs. I don't, I don't want like sadly, happily, I don't want any giveaway word. Like, I think those words are fine for writing ordinarily all the time, but not for this exercise. And then the last thing I don't want is cliches. So she felt like her heart was breaking. She was over the moon, anything like that. I just want description, basically just description of the thing. And then if there's a little bit of writing around that too, that's fine. So questions. Okay, I'm going to try to put that in the chat so you can see it, and we'll take about 10 minutes, and I'll tell you when we have, or maybe 8 minutes, and I'll tell you when you have 2 minutes left. About 2 more minutes. Okay. What was that? What was that like doing that? What did you notice, or what was unexpected or fun?
It was fun. It really forced you to be very selective in the details and how you describe them.
Anyone else want to tell us what it was like? Yeah,
I
Corinne.
also think about like the qualities in the room. Like when I'm thinking of the whatever question I picked, was it humid? Was it cold? Like how do those factor into the other words and adjectives that can go along with it?
Yeah, great. So I'm hoping people will want to read a couple and not tell us what the condition is, and then we can guess. Any volunteers to read? Yeah, Amy.
I always read.
Oh,
And
that's
a
great.
few of you know this. Navneet and Anne. And they're always awful because I just wrote them the second, but that's the beauty of it, is because you just wrote it the second, it's allowed to be what it is.
Yeah.
The painting would fit in her backpack along with her few clothes. The brilliant pink folds of the flamenco dancer's dress, the partner in his white shirt adorned with tassels, his arms almost reaching toward the woman, were the only brightness in this drab room. Everything else she would leave, the blanket grayed from too many washings, the stuffed animals that had lost their plush, the lamp her mother had bought on sale from a discount home store. She wouldn't miss a thing except her books. Nothing more would fit, and anyway, it was time to leave to get on to SEPTA to the Bolt bus.
Great, thank you. So what's this condition and how do you know? Yeah, Karen?
I would say it's number 3. The narrator is going to be leaving tomorrow.
And how can you tell what her point of view is, about that?
It feels like there's a sense of sense of anticipated loss, but of mixed emotion. Maybe a bit of loss, a bit of relief, but a sort of definitely a sense of saying goodbye to the objects in the room, or anticipated goodbye.
Can you point to any specific things? I know it's hard because we don't have it before us, but can anyone point to any specific things there? Yeah, Madison.
I was just going to add that it seems that the narrator's bringing along the only bright thing from the room. So that was a big thing for me. And then you have like the discount lamp and the various other objects that have kind of more drab descriptions. Whereas this person has taken something so bright and is keeping it close in the backpack and is recognizing that while they're letting the books go, that they're losing this part of themselves, but there's a brighter future that they're stepping into. So,
yeah,
really well done.
Thank you. Yeah, and Amy put it in the chat too, so we can actually look at it. Maybe one more comment about this, one more detail that you notice that tells you what the character is feeling or helps you feel it yourself. Just the blanket grayed from too many washings, the aged stuffed animals that had lost their plush. I love the animals that had lost their plush. I think that's very evocative of the sense of the childhood worn away.
Well, she does a good job. We get a sense of the age of the character and how this is someone who's young, who's leaving home or running away from home, possibly, and and also the kind of condition of the house, and that it is a drab.
Yeah.
It's a drab place and a drab life, and she's ready to leave it. And I love the detail about the arms of the dancer the partner almost reaching toward the woman. That there is that idea of kind of trying to make something happen but not being quite there yet. It's a beautiful detail.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, somebody else. Will somebody else read?
I'll read.
Yeah. Who, Jerry, is that you who's volunteering? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. In the kitchen, there was a metal sun with a face that dangled by a chain from a lock on the window. She didn't recall where she bought this object, but it seemed to have always been there, meeting her with its empty eyes when she entered the room. It had a flat nose and a mouth with ends that turned neither up nor down, but stretched into a grim resolve of how things would always be. The rays of sunlight were represented by sharp, pointy edges, and the bells that hung from the lower edges made a raucous rattle that sounded to her like a mocking farewell.
Great, thank you. Can you, like Amy, usually cut and paste it and put it in the chat?
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great. And we're almost at 5 o'clock, so let's just talk about this for one more minute, and then we will say goodbye. But while she's doing that, do you guys remember any details that stuck out? So first of all, which condition is this?
I think this was 3 as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I got that from the mocking farewell.
Yeah. And what else do you guys notice in this piece? What makes you understand that she's not unhappy to be leaving this place? Yeah, Rama.
I like the reference to the grim resolve. I thought that was a lovely phrase, and it told me something about the perspective of the protagonist, the narrator, who was experiencing this clock that had always been there, but she wanted to leave it behind, and that's what she was feeling, that grim resolve.
Yep, great. And what else?
I think the empty eyes are really telling too, because while they're judging the object, I think it reflects on the individual. So if somebody was in a different mindset, they might look at the object completely different, but the empty eyes is just kind of, there's no life there. There's no life in this place. So the person's ready to move on.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. It would be fun to hear more of them, but we are at 5 o'clock. So I just will say thank you to all of you for coming, and I really enjoyed it. And maybe I'll see you guys back at Blue Stoop or elsewhere another time.
Yeah. Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. Yeah, I was having audio issues. I'm gonna stop the recording. Yeah, so thank you so much. Is there anything else that you need from me? Do you have any questions?
Nope, I will just send you the handout. Oh, I didn't tell people we would send it to them, but
that's okay.
I'll write a little note with it maybe. Yeah, and thanks